April 6, 2013, a brash young Irishman named Conor McGregor makes his UFC debut with a thunderous knockout of Marcus Brimage just 67 seconds into the fight. McGregor was awarded a $60,000 bonus, a far cry from what he is set to make this weekend against Floyd Mayweather. But to 25-year-old McGregor, it was everything. In a post-fight interview, McGregor explained, quote, "Just last week I was collecting the social welfare. I was in there saying to them, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm signed to the UFC. I don't know. Now I suppose I'm just going to tell them to F off. To be honest, I don't know what's going on here. I'm just up here hearing 60,000. I'm just thinking of what I'm going to spend it on. Maybe a nice car or some suits, some custom-made suits. I don't know. I'm making money here. I didn't have money before this. Like I said, I was collecting 180 euros a week off social welfare, and here I am. I've got 60 G's bonus and my own pay." McGregor would go on to win his next two fights in dominant fashion as the proverbial hype train began to pick up steam behind him. However, it was always met with the same narrative. Conor McGregor is not that good. He's never fought a contender. September 27, 2014, McGregor faced top 10 ranked featherweight Dustin Poirier and finished the fight via TKO in 1 minute and 46 seconds. The narrative, ever shifting but always consistent, continued. Conor McGregor is not that good. He's never fought a wrestler. July 11, 2015, Conor McGregor knocks out Chad Mendes, a former NCAA All-American wrestler and Team Alpha Male protege, to win the UFC Interim Featherweight Championship. Again, a mix of praise and doubt followed McGregor. Conor McGregor is not that good. He's not faced a striker like Jose Aldo. December 12, 2015, McGregor is set to unify the featherweight belt in a title fight with reigning champion Jose Aldo. Aldo had not lost in 10 years and had never been knocked out. 13 seconds into the fight, McGregor lands a flush left hook, becoming the first man to knock out Jose Aldo and setting a UFC record for fastest knockout in a title fight. The story of Conor McGregor has always been one of ever-evolving achievements. Calling his shots against the beliefs of many, he continues to rise above his plateaus, and this Saturday he will face the toughest challenge of his combat sports career as he takes on Floyd Mayweather Jr. in a boxing match. On Tuesday, Conor McGregor posted a tweet summing up his career trajectory perfectly. It read simply, "We are ready to defy the odds and shock the world again." Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tomorrow's Fights. I'm your host, Matthew Catalano. With me, as always, the man in the white room, Matt Smith. How you doing, Matt?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Excellent. So, if you're joining us for the first time, we've already discussed the timeline for Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather, how we got to this point. Check that out on episode 1. Today we're going to discuss the breakdown of the actual fight. And I want to start with a disclaimer before we get into this. A lot of people view this fight as a spectacle or a non-competitive match or an exhibition. And that's fine. It may not be competitive. We don't know until it happens. But ending a breakdown there is a 30-second window of nothing to talk about. So I think it's important that you explore the path to victory for each guy, and that's what we're going to do. If all things we know about the true world are true, then obviously Mayweather should go in there and win any way he wants to. But that doesn't mean there aren't things that Conor can do to improve his chances of success, and those are some of the things we want to talk about. So, how are you feeling about this fight?
I think it's actually going to be more competitive than people think. I think that's why the odds are changing right now.
Yeah, last time we checked, Mayweather was minus 400.
I think ESPN had him at 550 yesterday.
Ooh, if that's true, that means money is coming in on Floyd. Let me check real quick.
But here's the thing, though. They have to make the odds better because nobody's going to lay down $2,200 just to win $100. That just doesn't make any sense. It's not worth the risk.
I agree, but it's also really because people are putting money down on McGregor that pushed that line so close.
Yeah.
So just to provide some context, the Floyd Mayweather opened at minus 2,200, which is just insane, and he's all the way down to minus 400. So that means when he first opened, you'd have to lay $2,000 on him just to win 100. And now he's all the way down to minus 400. So if you're 100% sure that Floyd Mayweather is going to win, you can go take 4 grand and win 1,000. I mean, it's a gamble, but yeah. So I still have on the website I use, I still have minus 400 Mayweather, plus 300 Conor McGregor coming back as an underdog. You can get okay. This has moved a little bit. Floyd by KO is minus 125, which means that's what everybody thinks is going to happen. Floyd by decision is plus 250 if you think Conor's going to make it 12 rounds. Okay. So, a couple things we're going to talk about today. What does each guy do well? What is the path to victory for each fighter? And then we're going to talk about a couple of the X factors, the glove size, the weight, the age, and the clinch. So, I think you said it before, but the more I watch these tape on Floyd Mayweather, the more worried I get for Conor McGregor.
For sure.
So just some of the things that Floyd does well. Floyd always sticks to his game plan. He never deviates from his game plan. A lot of boxers, a lot of fighters in general, you just see, once they get hit a couple times or they get dragged into a brawl, they'll start to just think, I gotta hurt this guy, I gotta get him back. And Floyd does not veer off course. He sticks to a game plan and he executes. So he's mentally smart. The other thing is his preparation. This is what a lot of people say. He'll never go into that ring unless he's 100% sure he's going to win. And of course you can never be 100%, but you can be close. Look how long it took him to fight Pacquiao, right?
I was going to say that, yeah.
He wanted to make sure.
He wanted to make sure he knew he was going to beat him.
Or look when he fought Alvarez or Canelo Alvarez. It was when Alvarez was young and just hadn't come into his own now. Alvarez is a much better fighter now, but it was pretty much widely accepted that Floyd wanted to pick him off before he got good and just fight, get that fight out of the way.
Yeah, he doesn't. What he's great at is he's not emotional in the ring. He sticks to his plan and he knows how to adapt over a fight. Past 5-6 rounds, he knows exactly what to do to win that fight.
That's very true. It's almost like you see only two different types of Floyd Mayweather fights. It's either they go in there and they try and box him, and maybe he'll give away the first 3 rounds, and he'll just take over with his ring generalship. Or they'll try and swarm him, take him into a brawl like Maidana did, and even if they win the first 5 rounds, they can't keep that up.
Yeah.
So Floyd starts to take over at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Technically, in the ring, I don't think anybody can outbox Floyd Mayweather. It's not possible.
No.
I mean, you saw what he did to Canelo Alvarez. It was just a clinic. I thought that was a really poor game plan by Alvarez too. But the other thing I think Floyd does well is his jab and his pull right counter. Those are his money moves. I mean, if you get him in the center of the ring, he'll just slip punches and snipe you with jabs all day. And then he's good at ducking off the ropes. Man, another thing I realized when I was watching some of his past fights, his defensive shell that he goes into, you cannot hit him if he's turning his hips against the ring. Some guys square up and they're shelled like this, but if he gets just turned a little bit, his shoulder comes in front of his face and you can't even get to him. And somebody said it's like hitting a turtle inside of a shell. And he's so good at hiding his face, and it's so funny. You just never see that.
When you stand in front of him, he makes his target size very small. Turn it sideways. He's covered up his complete body. It's hard to hit him with body shots. His chin is tucked. He's protecting his jaw on the other side. It's perfect. It's perfect boxing. Mm-hmm. So defensively, yes, he's probably the best defensive boxer of all time. But the only way someone's going to come in there is they got to do what other fighters try to do and try to maintain the pace and just brawl him and just don't let it be a clinch game. Don't let him hug. Don't let the ref separate. They just got to keep trucking forward.
Mm.
That's really the only way.
I want to see what the clinch looks like here, though, because a couple other things that people have brought up. Jack Slack did a really good breakdown on this of like how the clinch has evolved in boxing, and it's just completely dictated by what the refs allow, basically.
Yes.
But like Floyd has never fought someone with the like wrestling experience that McGregor has. Now, I'm not saying McGregor's a good wrestler. I mean, he is, but he's been training it for 10 years. Has Floyd Mayweather been training clinch wrestling for 10 years? I don't think so. So I wonder if that is going to play a factor. Like, I would love to see McGregor be aggressive in the clinch and just be dirty, get an overhook and just throw rabbit punches until they break. The other thing that's crazy when you watch Floyd's fights, like as an MMA fan, the way Floyd he'll sit against the ropes and let people wail on him for way longer than I think he should. And in MMA, you just can't afford to do that with 4-ounce gloves. Like, there's seconds before you're going to get knocked out. I mean, did you notice that in the Maidana fight? Like, how strange does that feel to watch somebody just sit there and shell up? Like, you just can't do that.
Yeah, but I think he absorbs punches very well, too. Like, how much damage was he really getting done to him? That's the question.
Right. I mean, the
I
bigger
would agree. He was definitely, Maidana was doing a really good game plan at the beginning, but it's hard to maintain that pace throughout the whole fight.
I think they said the announcers as that fight started, they're like, okay, if you want to beat Floyd Mayweather, you have to throw 100 punches around. Like if you want to win him on points. And after the first round, Maidana threw exactly 100 punches. The other thing is that when Floyd's against the ropes, where he doesn't get hurt that much, is because in boxing you can dip back off the ropes. Like they're elastic. You can lean back further, and obviously in MMA you can't do that. The cage is basically a wall, so there's nowhere for you to go. That's why it's if you get stuck against the cage in MMA, like you're getting hurt. But in boxing, he can sit there, and he does. I will say this though: the second Maidana fight, he did not want to be against the ropes. I mean, that clearly was his game plan. I mean, he was almost sprinting off the perimeter of the ring in that second fight. So it's hard to say that that's like I take Maidana's success with a grain of salt, is what I'm saying, because in the second fight, Floyd had him figured out. But
that's what he does best. He adapts, he learns, and that's how he's 49-0.
Yeah. You want to say anything else about Floyd before we move on to Conor?
No, let's go on to Conor.
All right, so why don't you start on this? Well, what does Conor McGregor do well?
Knockout power. And I think he literally, if you look at somebody who has the will to be a champion, it's him. He's overcome a lot of different fights that people thought he was never going to win. So I think in that aspect, that's why you should never count him out. I think he's an amazing fighter. He's well-rounded, and he's definitely got the knockout power.
Yeah, normally I wouldn't put as much weight on like a mental edge here, but McGregor, he really thinks he can win, and his team really thinks he can win. And I mean, that confidence is not. It's such a big deal to have that confidence. Like, people don't understand. Like, people that have never fought in any competitive martial art, like, it's all about confidence. I mean, if you have confidence, you can fight to your full potential and beyond. And if you don't, you'll be, you're running at 50%. And Conor McGregor thinks he's going to win every time. Like, he really thinks he's going to win. I remember there was this, I liken it to an analogy of like J.R. Smith in the NBA, like chucking up crazy shots all the time. And people always say like, well, does he have his confidence? And his teammate was like, J.R. Smith thinks every shot he throws is going in, and that's Conor McGregor. He thinks every fight he's gonna win in 60 seconds, and I think that's
a perfect example of that is the Diaz fights.
Yeah,
like even after he lost the first one, and he was first off going against a way bigger fighter. People thought he had no business going in there like that. and he still wanted to fight again as soon as he lost. It was like the first thing he wanted to do was a rematch. He knew he could beat him when they're at the right weight together and with the right training.
You know,
That's confidence. That's huge.
That was another fight where everybody doubted him. Yeah, the first fight they thought he was going to win, but once he lost that and he had the rematch, literally everyone picked against him. Like everybody. And he knew that too, and that pissed him off. And I just remember after he won that fight and he's walking through like the terminal or whatever when you exit the octagon, and he's just screaming at the top of his lungs like, yeah, doubt me now, and like some like random people are like saying, oh, good job, and he's like, you doubted me, you picked against me, doubt me now.
Actually, the most funny part was after the Diaz fights when he's fighting for the second belt. They didn't even think he was gonna win that belt. They didn't even have the belt ready. He's like, where's my belt? He's just stood around for 5 minutes screaming for a belt.
Well, I think that was the UFC's fault that they.
Yeah, but why would they have that ready? Why would they have that ready? Come on now. That was kind of funny.
Crazy. The reason I think the mental thing is important here is because I think that Floyd has a little bit of an aura around him where it's almost like when people go in to fight him, they've already lost because it's this insurmountable challenge, you know? It's like when Fedor Emelianenko was undefeated and he just had like people were beat before they got to the ring, you know, because he's just this mythical undefeated beast who never looked like he got hurt. Like Floyd has never got knocked down. I think that messes with people's heads. I think it messed with Canelo. I mean, Canelo just didn't go after him like ever. And I just don't like McGregor's not going to be fazed by that.
No, not at all.
McGregor, like, he hasn't really been around in the boxing game to watch Floyd evolve into this historic figure. I mean, we all know it's happened, but McGregor's been experiencing high levels of success in a parallel sport, and he doesn't give a shit what Floyd has done. Like, McGregor's going to go in there and he's going to bring the fight to him, whether he wins or not. But he thinks he's going to win. So I at least think that this fight won't be some tepid dance contest.
But at the same time, though, you have to consider that Mayweather's not going to be fazed by McGregor either.
He's not, and I don't think he will be. But
that's why the mental game, I almost think, doesn't really matter in this, because I think they're both champions. They both have the right mindset going into this. So I don't really think it's that big of a deal. But it helps, though, with McGregor. I don't think McGregor actually gives Mayweather that much respect, and I think he thinks he actually is going to win this, which will help him.
The point I was just trying to make is, like, McGregor will bring a fight to him. You know,
100%.
he's not just going to accept. Like, I think a lot of guys that fight Floyd have kind of just accepted making it to the bell, you know. But all right, let's talk about, you know, what technically McGregor does well. I went back and watched a bunch of his fights, and I want to say I'm going to throw out everything before the first Diaz fight, because I mean, if you look at McGregor before those fights, like, I went back and watched like every performance he had in the UFC, and he is like just a whirlwind of destruction. And I mean, like, he's throwing wheel kicks and like, just he kicks so much that I just don't think there's a lot to take away from it, because he doesn't have his boxing game going.
If you watch McGregor, though, he definitely evolves over time very quickly. He's very well-rounded. He has a lot of knockouts. He's just a great fighter.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And like I was saying, he had some poor like striking performances in the UFC. I mean, his fight against Chad Mendes, he took a ton of damage, but he also had that hurt knee. But anyways, those fights, just he's thrown so many kicks, and there's actually a lot of clinch work in there that it's just he's not the same fighter. After the first Diaz fight, where he threw a bunch of wheel kicks and shit that like weren't effective, and he got tired fast, you know, then after that fight, you saw that he became this more patient counter striker, and he understood that, you know, if you don't knock a guy out with all those flashy spinning kicks, you're going to get tired real fast. You're expending a lot of energy doing that. And one of the smartest things I think McGregor ever did was in the open workout for the second Nate Diaz fight, all he threw were just wheel kicks, just crazy, flashy wheel kicks. And then in the actual fight, of course, he all he did was, he didn't throw a single ridiculous kick. He just threw leg kicks and boxed him up. But okay, so what McGregor does well, obviously, his bread and butter is his counter left hand, and in the UFC, he's been successful as a counter fighter because his timing is so good. His
He's
timing
super
and
focused
distance.
with his punches. Like you can see his counter punches. He just stands there. He's waiting for you to do something, and he's just pinpoint precision. He'll lay it right on your jaw or wherever he needs. Like he's actually really good when it comes to that. Problem is Mayweather is pretty damn fast. So
Yeah. So tell me what you think of this though. Like I've noticed when McGregor lands his left hand and his right hand counters, you know, he's he's mastering distance in the octagon, but he's standing so wide.
yeah,
And it's much easier there. Let me put it this way. There are many more tools you have in mixed martial arts to be able to create distance than there are in boxing. In boxing, you can't you can't throw like a teep kick or a front kick. You can't feint a takedown. Like you are close all the time. And so for people
I
to
I think Mayweather's kind of mastered it though. His body
right,
jab
so
is sick.
exactly. So there's two tools, there's a couple tools that help actually create that distance in boxing. One is the body jab, which Mayweather throws all the time.
Hmm.
The other is the double jab, and that gets guys to retreat. And then the third is feinting, and all those techniques you don't really see in MMA.
Yeah.
Because there's easier ways to create that illusion of distance, low kicks, leg kicks, push kicks, anything like that. So I don't know if that timing for McGregor and that sense of distance is gonna be the same when he's boxing, and and that's what I worry about in this fight for him. If he really thinks he's gonna stand in the center of the cage and he thinks he's gonna catch Floyd when he's slipping, maybe I don't know, you know, what his game plan is gonna be. We'll talk about that later, but that's something McGregor does well. He cuts off the cage pretty well, which is going to be super important in this fight. Maidana chased Floyd around a little bit, and it's much easier to cut off a guy in a boxing ring and get him in a corner because there's only four walls, whereas in the octagon there's eight, and it's a little harder. But you see that problem with a lot of MMA fighters. They're chasing guys instead of cutting them off. So, um, all right, let's move on to establishing a path of victory for each fighter. Let's start with Floyd. What's he got to do?
Floyd just got to be Floyd. He's just got to go in there with the same game plan he's had for all of his fights. Be the best defensive fighter, adapt over all the rounds, and just score points. That's all he has to
Hmm.
do. He doesn't need to knock out McGregor. He's probably not even going to try to be honest with you. He's too smart for that.
I don't know. I think he knows if he doesn't knock him out, it's kind of he's going
Does
to get ridiculed for that.
Yeah, but does it matter though? It's payday for him.
Probably no, probably not. What is he going to get a $50,000 bonus from Dana White?
He's, he's still 50-0 at that point. Like, does he care? No, he doesn't care, dude. He just made a lot of money. I don't think that's ever been his game plan is to put on an amazing show for people. This,
Yeah, he's definitely not about that. At least it's not his priority. We'll say
no.
that. Um, yeah, I think the path to victory for Floyd is, I mean, it depends what fight McGregor brings to him, but it's essentially feel out the first three rounds, slip everything McGregor's thrown in the middle of the cage or ring, sorry. Um, Stay off the ropes. I think really all Floyd has to do is stay off the ropes, to be honest,
Hmm.
to win this fight. If he stays off the ropes and boxes McGregor in open space, I don't see how he loses. I just don't see how he gets hurt if he's not on the fence taking a ton of shots. and even if he is, his defensive shell is so effective, and he's able to
It's amazing.
duck and bob off the ropes so well and reset. Um, I think the fight will look like um, I think the fight will look like maybe even McGregor wins 2 rounds, but Floyd starts to frustrate him. McGregor gets tired. Floyd starts to take over in round 6 and 7. Maybe he starts landing a lot of those right hands. I also noticed something that Floyd does is in the beginning he feels out of his opponents, of course. Like a lot of great fighters do that. Anderson Silva, Leo Machida, and he slips a lot and throws a ton of jabs, but he usually doesn't bring his counter right hand out till a little bit later. Once he's got you figured out, once he's got your timing down, and once he knows you're getting a little tired, he'll start bringing it out in the fifth, sixth, seventh round. Then he'll start actually accumulating damage, hurting you, getting you even more tired, and then it's marathon mode for Floyd Mayweather. That's his whole game, man. Rounds 6 through 12. That's the money rounds for him. So that's I think that's how Floyd wins if he does. Does he stop him? If he stops him, I think it's because McGregor came out incredibly aggressive, maybe tries to emulate some type of Maidana fight and just pours on the offense for 4 rounds and but can't get the finish.
McGregor would have to get caught, I would think. But
Well, I don't even think he would have to get caught. If McGregor puts all his eggs in the knockout basket and just says, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna go hard for 6 rounds,
yeah,
and my game plan isn't gonna involve a seventh round. It's 6 rounds or nothing. And if we get to the seventh round and he's still there and he's huffing and puffing, like I think Floyd could accumulate enough
yeah,
damage where they could even stop it on the stool. Like the ref could come in and say, you're not defending yourself well enough.
yeah.
I think that's a possibility.
Well, we pretty much know McGregor's game plan. He's been saying he's gonna dismantle him within 4 rounds. So
Yeah, but how? So, all right, let's talk about the path to victory for Conor McGregor. This is what everybody wants to hear. Does he have a
path to victory. There's only one way. He has to knock out Mayweather within 4 rounds, maybe 5 rounds.
I agree, but what does he do? Does he try to box him and actually catch him with his counters and timing like he does in his MMA fights, or does he try and does he watch the Maidana fight and say, I can do that?
I think he has to emulate the Maidana fight and just hope that he's got more power in him to actually knock him out. Because Maidana, if you watch it, like there's some really sweet punches where they're tight in there, their heads are buttoned, and they're just blazing each other with punches.
You,
And
you see
Maidana's not hard on
Maidana
him.
you see Maidana throwing those overhand rights like literally 5 inches away, and they're these like downward hammer overhand rights. I mean, he's just throwing. You want to talk about angles? He's throwing some weird shit at Floyd.
And the ref's not actually separating for a lot of them too. They're
Yeah, and so
literally
that's
clashing heads and they're brawling, and that's what McGregor needs to do. He needs to make sure that he can get close enough so that he can actually do some damage and the ref doesn't pull him apart,
hmm
which is going to be
and
huge.
just to add to that, the something that should be noted for this fight, the ref is Robert Byrd, I believe, and historically he lets fighters fight in the clinch a lot more than some of the other guys like Tony Weeks. So that's good for McGregor. I remember his coach being interviewed recently and saying we're very happy about the choice of referee, so that's good. The only thing I want to bring up for Connor and his game plan, his coach John Kavanagh, who's actually his jiu-jitsu coach, and then he has another coach who's his boxing coach, Owen Rowdy, and Owen Rowdy is going to be the only one talking to him in the corner. Like John Kavanagh is going to be there, but he's just going to be like facilitating. He's not going to be giving McGregor advice. If he has advice to give, he'll give it to Owen, and Owen will give it to McGregor. Now, he mentioned on Ariel Helwani's MMA Hour that they have built a game plan that they think will beat Floyd Mayweather. Like they have something in mind, and they even said they saw some aspects of that work in the sparring with Paulie Malignaggi. So take that for what it's worth. But I was trying to think, what is that game plan? And I think I think that it involves some of the Maidana fight um, success that Maidana had, emulating some of that. But I also think it involves something about McGregor's left hand because if you go back and watch some of the Mayweather fights, there's a couple narratives there. He has trouble with southpaws, they say. He didn't have any trouble with Manny Pacquiao though. And he's vulnerable to the left counter. And that was just about the only thing Canelo landed in those first 3 rounds, which he still lost. But that's basically McGregor's best punch. So I'm betting that they see something there. They see some opportunity where he can land that counter on Floyd Mayweather, maybe when Floyd's coming off the ropes or when Floyd is using his pole right counter, and then maybe he's a little overcommitted and McGregor being a southpaw can step in with his left hand. Maybe something like that. I just hope their game plan doesn't revolve around him doing that the whole time. Like they need some clinch fighting. They need some cutting off the cage brawling. And McGregor needs to do all of that well. And he needs to finish it before 6 rounds. He's not winning a decision. So, all right, let's get to the X factors. Glove size. Nevada State Athletic Commission has sanctioned the use of 8-ounce gloves for the fight, which are usually used for fights 147 pounds and below. If you are 154 and above, you use 10-ounce gloves. And we talked about this a little bit on the last episode, but this basically originated from social media. I think McGregor put out some challenge on Instagram or some bullshit and was like, "Hey McGregor, let's fight in 8-ounce." And McGregor responded and said, "I don't give a shit. I fight in 4, whatever you want." So they actually sanctioned this. I was kind of surprised about that. Does this play a factor? If so, what is that, and who does it benefit?
Well, I don't think it really benefits Mayweather too much because that's what he normally fights at is 8-ounce gloves. For McGregor, I think it's huge, though, that he doesn't have to fight at 10 ounces. Hopefully this helps with his endurance. Should help out with knockout power. Bigger glove, it's kind of hard to knock somebody out, I think. So, and keep the pace up with the bigger glove. So I think this kind of helps McGregor out, but at the end of the day, McGregor is more used to fighting at 4 ounces, so we'll have to see.
Now, does it help Mayweather get the finish?
I don't know, to be honest. He hasn't finished anybody in a while, has he?
No, he hasn't. Yeah, who
So,
was the last person that Mayweather finished? Was it? It wasn't Victor Ortiz, was it?
let's see.
Let's see.
He has a lot of knockouts.
Yeah, but they're early.
Yeah.
Early in his career when he wasn't the defensive savant that he is now. Um, yeah, dude, it was Victor Ortiz in 2011. That was the fight. Victor Ortiz was never the same after that. But that was the fight where there was some foul, something happened, and the fight was stopped momentarily. And when it was restarted, Ortiz went to touch gloves or hug him or something, and Floyd just Floyd just popped him with the right hand and knocked him out. Um, and it was super controversial. People were like, "Oh, Floyd's a dick," and a lot of other people were like, "Hey, protect yourselves at all times." But yeah. So the only thing I'll say about the gloves, I agree with everything you said. Um, Someone mentioned this on a breakdown. I think it was Dan Hardy, which I totally haven't thought about this, but he was saying sparring and working out with 10-ounce gloves compared to 8, you feel the difference in what you're holding,
Hmm.
condition wise. He was saying if I'm sparring or hitting pads with 8-ounce gloves and then I go and put on 10s, if they feel like 14s.
Hmm.
So I think that's good for McGregor because maybe he's not a cardio triathlete wizard exactly. So anything that helps him in that department is good. Um,
We'll really have to see about the cardio in this fight because this is a completely different ball game than MMA. So
Yeah.
At one side of me says, he's just standing up, he's boxing. Maybe his cardio is going to be a little better. He doesn't actually have to go against the cage, try to take down, submit people. That I think that's pretty grueling. So, but at the same time, this is 12 rounds.
So yeah, there's two ways I feel about that. One is I went back and watched the second Nate Diaz Connor fight,
Hmm.
and again they say like Connor got tired there at the end of the third round. Then he had his second win in the fourth round.
Hmm.
There was a lot more clinching in that fight than I remembered. Like literally every round except the first round, Diaz is initiating a clinch against the fence. Like there is time spent in the
Hmm.
clinch. And yeah, anybody who's wrestled or, done anything in the clinch knows that that's exhausting, far more exhausting than boxing. Assuming you're not, giving everything. But like I really think this is one of those things where it's like 5 rounds in an MMA fight means you fight for 25 minutes and you get 4 1-minute breaks, right? Whereas fighting for 12 rounds in boxing, you fight for 36 minutes, but you get 11 breaks.
Yeah.
Those breaks are big, man. Like try running on the treadmill at 8 miles an hour every 5 minutes for 25 minutes, but take a 60-second break. And then run on the treadmill for six and a half, but do it every 3 minutes for 36 minutes and take a 1 minute break after 3 minutes.
Hmm.
I mean, assuming you're an athlete and in shape, I think you'll find the second method easier. I'm not saying that's a
I
great
I think
analogy for
it's well
boxing, but
to go 5 minutes too is way different than just 3 minute rounds. So it's a completely different sport, but it's hard to say how his cardio is going to be. To be honest with you.
I think that's a big question mark. I really wonder. But all right, let's move on to the next X factor. Weight. How will weight play a factor in this game? They're gonna weigh in Friday, I'm assuming. Uh, so the fight is at 154 pounds. Floyd has fought as high as 152. I'm not sure if he's fought at 154. I'd have to go back and look, but most of his fights are at 147. That's basically his weight class.
Hmm.
He fought Canelo. He met Canelo at 152 catch weight. They say Canelo weighs about 165, 168, so he cut about 15 pounds to make that limit. McGregor traditionally walks around about 168 when he's in shape, so look for him to cut about 15 pounds to get down to 154. I would expect McGregor to be 168 in the ring on Saturday, and I would expect Mayweather to be. I don't know if Mayweather's even gonna weigh in at 154. He might be like 150, 152.
I
But
think he's actually going to weigh in less. If he's actually in good shape, he should be weighing in a little less.
yeah, I think his true weight is like exactly 150 or something like
Yeah.
that. So all things said and done, Connor will have about, let's say, a 15-pound weight advantage.
I was
Uh,
giving it around 15, 20 pounds the day they
yeah,
fight.
I wouldn't quite say 20, but a lot of people are like,
I was
"Oh,
reading this
Conor McGregor."
article about McGregor. In 2016, he was walking around at 177 pounds.
Yeah, but is
So
that's not in camp though?
that's true. That is true.
That's like that weight. Look, there's a difference between losing weight and cutting weight.
Hmm.
Okay, here's an example. Rampage Jackson fought in the UFC at 205, right?
Yep.
Then he went then he went to Bellator and fought at heavyweight, and he weighed in at 253. Do you think that he cuts 50 pounds and weighs in and goes into the cage on Saturday nights at
No.
205, like at 253? No, he
Obviously,
just
you're never
gets
going to get that
back.
back.
Right, he
But
just gets back.
what I'm saying is a Mayweather in peak physical condition should be weighing in less than 154. So there could be a bigger margin there than you think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think boxers just don't cut as much weight as MMA
Yeah.
fighters. But Connor should have no trouble making 154. Not at all. That's his ideal weight class. 13, 15 pounds, that's not a crazy amount of weight to move around for a fighter. Um, so is that a big advantage for McGregor? I mean, it's an advantage. I think it's an advantage in the clinch, especially if he can lean on him and sap some of
Well,
Mayweather's strength.
in boxing though, don't they have weight classes that a lot smaller intervals.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe him coming in bigger and taller and a reach advantage. I think he has a 2-inch reach advantage. It might help him out. We don't know.
Does he have a 2-inch reach advantage?
I believe so. I think he's got a 2-inch reach advantage.
Let me fact check that real quick. I was actually thinking about that the other day. Because normally Floyd has the reach advantage in his fights. But he doesn't usually fight people as big as Conor. The one thing I will say, if you think this is like the biggest guy that Floyd has fought, I mean, Canelo is about the same size as McGregor. So Floyd's reach is 72 inches. Conor's
74.
74. Conor is 5'9", Floyd is 5'8". I mean, you can definitely tell that Conor's a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you think about this, McGregor's
What?
won 21 fights and 18 of them for knockouts.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of know what his game plan is.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Let's move on. Let's talk about the age. It's pretty crazy to think that McGregor is 28 years old and he's going in to fight a 41-year-old Mayweather.
Isn't he going to be 29 on fight night? McGregor?
Is he?
I think so. I think I was reading
No,
that
you're right.
somewhere.
He's 29. You're right. But what is Floyd? Floyd's 41, right?
40, 41. I don't think it's that big of a factor, to be honest with you. Because when's the last time he fought? Like a year ago?
Who?
Mayweather?
No, I think it was longer. It was the Andre Berto fight. Let me
But
see.
he's been doing this his entire life, you know what I mean? And he knows what it needs to do to get through 12 rounds. So,
He fought. Sorry, keep going.
No, but what I was saying is, like, I don't see it being a factor, the age thing, because I don't think he would have taken on this fight unless he knew he was going to win it. You know how Mayweather is. So I don't think age is a big factor for this at all. And this is not like somebody who's, like, inexperienced just getting into the sport. This is someone who's been doing it his entire life.
Yeah, and he's always in shape. Mayweather doesn't drink.
Yeah.
He's basically in fight shape all the time. He's treated his body very well. So his last fight against Andre Berto was September 12, 2015, essentially 2 years ago. The only thing I'll say about the age is, Floyd is 40, Conor is 29. Age defeats everyone. And Floyd obviously has a good chin. You see him get hit in those exchanges on the ropes. And Floyd is obviously very, very fast. The way he slips punches in the center there, I mean, nobody gets close to landing anything flush on him in open space. But, eventually your speed and your chin are the two things that go with age. And I wanted to look this up quickly because what's a famous MMA fighter that you think of who is very evasive and had a good chin? I think of Anderson Silva.
Yeah. Yeah, that would probably be the prime example right there.
So Anderson Silva. So then I wanted to go back and see how old was Anderson Silva when he lost that first Chris Weidman fight, where he looked a little bit slower and he got clean knocked out and didn't recover. That was in 2013, so that was 4 years ago. Damn, 4 years ago. It's crazy.
That's a long time.
Anderson Silva was 38 when that happened.
Yep.
He was 38. He came back. He lost the second Chris Weidman fight to the freak injury. Let's throw that out.
Yep.
He had a okay performance.
Hey, age could be a factor for that too, though.
Yeah,
Could have
sure.
been.
And he's never looked the same since that first Chris Weidman fight. You can tell that
when you get knocked out, even Joe Rogan says this a lot. When you get knocked out, sometimes it does something to a fighter. Some of them never recover from that. Perfect example is what's her name? Oh my God, I can't think of her name right now.
You're not gonna say Ronda Rousey, are you?
Ronda Rousey. No, 100%. She never was the same after that. She looked way different in the ring. Even the
that was all.
Dude, she looked completely different. I think it really mentally messed her up. And if you look at the interviews and like things she did from her house, like online, she was not the same fighter after that.
Oh, it definitely mentally fucked her up. I'm not arguing that. Damn. Yeah, I guess I was just trying to draw a parallel between Silva and Mayweather because they're two very evasive,
Hmm.
effective, dominant fighters that were getting older in age. And like at a certain point, you know, at a certain point you can't fight forever. Even Bernard Hopkins, right? He got he got decimated in his last fight. I mean,
The only
and
thing
that was
different
the
though with
time.
the Silva fight when he got knocked out is everybody knew Silva was eventually going to get knocked out for something like that because he showboated too much. It wasn't like him being evasive; he was just like messing around a lot too. So he eventually was going to get caught, and Weidman did it. But yeah, it's age could have been a factor, but I don't know. To be honest with you, it was there was a lot of showboating going on there.
Yeah. So, okay, and that brings us to the clinch. This is like I think this is the biggest unknown of this fight. What the clinch is going to look like here. I mean, if you look at some of Mayweather's fights, like the Pacquiao fight, whenever it went into the clinch, Pacquiao just like literally stopped fighting. Like he didn't do anything. I don't think McGregor's going to do that. I really want to see McGregor fight dirty. I want to see him like get overhooks and like just like
Well, he has to be
wrap
careful with
punch.
that though, because he doesn't want the ref to separate him. So he might have to come in with his like chin tucked, his arms up, and then just start blasting him,
Yeah.
kind of like Maidana did. But
Also,
it's hard.
Miguel Cotto had some effect on Mayweather in the clinch. He didn't go into the clinch as much, but he stopped Mayweather from clinching with him by just keeping like a really tight guard. Like his
Hmm.
his his guard was so tight that Mayweather couldn't get his head below him and clinch or like stop the action.
Yeah.
So I
What
mean
worries
maybe
me though is he's gonna have to protect his face and his chin, and it's gonna leave his body open. I think a little bit, and I think Mayweather's gonna implement the jab. Maybe not right away, but by fourth, fifth round, he's gonna implement that to keep the distance. And I
oh I
think,
think he'll do it right away.
well, we'll see what happens though, because McGregor might be ready for that and just go a little nuts in there.
Yeah, that's true. I mean it could be fought in a phone booth.
And
I
here's
mean
the thing:
that's what
those
McGregor should be
punches
doing.
might not do anything in the beginning of the fight, but by the end of the fight, that fighter's hurt. So that's when they're most effective is later rounds.
Here's the other thing to consider. I have a feeling that the ref is going to have a very watchful eye on any MMA related tactics, which might hurt McGregor in the clinch. I don't know. That's just speculation, but we've heard that there's shit written into the contract that basically says like, if you kick me, you lose everything. So I don't know if like I'll be interested to see how fast they separate the clinch.
I think if it's clean and nobody's grabbing each other, I think they'll let it continue.
Yeah, they should. Um,
So it's just what worries me is their heads are gonna be clashing all the time. In order to brawl like that, they're gonna it's gonna be like the Maidana fight, and that sometimes they'll separate fighters just based on that too. So
yeah. All right. Well, let's get to it. Wrap it up. What's your final prediction?
I would love to see McGregor beat Mayweather within the first 4 or 5 rounds, but being realistic, it's probably going to go the distance. Mayweather.
Mayweather by decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But if I was going to put money down, if I was a betting man, I'd be putting on McGregor because I would love to see him kick Mayweather's ass.
yeah, but what's that bet worth if he loses? So uh, you know, examining all the fighters that have had this is how I feel about this fight for each guy's chances. Examining all the fighters that have had success against Floyd, it's been guys that are pressure boxers,
Hmm.
pressure fighters, dirty brawlers, dirty boxers, and McGregor's just not that fighter. not even in his MMA fights. McGregor's a Now he's a patient counter striker who looks for combinations on the outside. And that's just not going to work against Floyd Mayweather.
I don't think so.
And even if he tries to replicate the Castillo fight, the Cotto fight, the Maidana fight, which Floyd learned from in the second bout, even if he tries to do that, I don't think 4 months of preparation are good enough. I don't trust that he's going to be able to emulate that. And even if he does, I don't trust that he can do it more than 4 rounds. And I don't trust that he's going to finish it in under six. And because of that, I got to pick Mayweather.
Do you see Mayweather finishing the fight early?
So I've thought about this a lot. I think this is like the real question people have is
Yeah.
does Mayweather get the finish or not? And I think if Conor McGregor really is gonna go all out, I think they do believe they're gonna win and they have this, confidence, however misplaced you want to think it is. But I'm sure that Conor's gonna follow his game plan. And I'm also sure that his game plan involves the fight ending before 6 rounds. I mean, he said it, his coaches said it.
He
And if
says that
that's
like every
true,
single interview.
right. And if that's true, then you have to suspect that McGregor's like really going to go for that. He's really going to go for that finish. I think he's going to go for it so much that he's going to be willing to
To get
expend
himself.
himself
Yeah.
and give up the fight in later rounds if it gets there, because he's not going to win a decision anyways. So I see that happening, and I see a frustrated, tired, slightly panicked McGregor stumbling around in rounds
I,
7 and 8 and getting finished in the eighth round. That's what I think is going
I
to happen.
think no matter what, if he comes out guns blazing and he looks like he's doing damage to Mayweather, it looks good for him. If he makes it
Hmm.
12 rounds, it looks good for him. You know what I mean? If he knocks him out, I think no matter what, the only thing where it doesn't look good is if McGregor gets completely dismantled within 5 rounds by Mayweather, then yeah, then it doesn't look good. But if he makes
Eh,
it to the ninth round, but he did some serious damage in the first four, people are gonna be like, "Yo, he's a good boxer. This kid's awesome." So I think
Yeah.
no matter what, it's good for his brand and his image, and I think that's all McGregor cares about right now. To be honest with you, he's making a lot of money, and it's good for him.
Hmm.
So I think it's a win.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think as long as McGregor doesn't get finished in 4 rounds or loses every round, I think I think it's a win. So, all right, that's a wrap. I would love to see McGregor shock the world, but well, let's just touch on this one last thing. If if McGregor actually does win,
The internet breaks.
what does that mean for boxing and what does that mean for MMA?
I think it's great for MMA because then people are gonna be like, "Well, the best fighters come from the UFC. You know, this is awesome." For boxing, though, I don't really know what that means. People are just gonna blame it and say, "Oh, well, Mayweather's 41," or they'll have an excuse for it. But I think more money will start to actually pump into MMA, which would be good because I think the fighters should get paid more. I think it's ridiculous how much they get making boxing compared to MMA. So
Yeah,
it could be good for the sport. If
I
if
think
Mayweather wins, it's whatever. It's nobody really cares. But
yeah. If McGregor wins, I will actually be tuning into ESPN to watch like all those guys eat their words. I forget who it was, but somebody came out and there are people saying that McGregor will not land a single punch.
I,
Like people are saying that.
no,
So
he'll
like
land a
what is
punch.
that? That's like a journalist is saying that, like a real analyst with a professional career is saying that. Like what happens if McGregor comes out and wins? Like that guy's career is fucking over. So I mean, I'll be interested to see that. I think it'll force the boxing community to take a hard look at what they believe is true and right and proper fundamentals. I think if McGregor actually did win, it would kind of show that, you know, maybe we can think outside the box and some other techniques are effective. Um, and then finally, let's end it with what is the future for McGregor? After this fight, does he A, retire, B, fight another boxing match, C, go back to the UFC?
I think all day it's going back to the UFC. No matter what happens from this, I don't think he's sticking in boxing. He doesn't like He's doing it because he's making a lot of money and he's fighting the best fighter of all time. But if he did beat him, say for example, what else does he have to prove? He already beat the best fighter. He's going to go back to the UFC. He's probably going to try to take a third belt. Who knows? You know what I mean? That's just
Yeah.
what McGregor is. I don't see him staying in boxing, though, to be honest with you.
I mean, if he wins or has a good showing, there's money in the Malignaggi fight, though. I mean, he'd probably make more in that than he would in any UFC fight. That's the only way I would see him considering
Well, why couldn't he
doing
do
another boxing
both?
fight.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
so that's the thing. I think he goes back to the UFC no matter what happens. I also think that. I think he's even gonna feel. Um, I think he's gonna miss MMA like even while he's in there boxing. I think
Because he's
he's
so
gonna
technical, man. Even when he was training on the UFC show, like he's so technical in everything he does, and I don't see boxing being the sport for him. MMA, like he's well rounded. He's good on the ground in the clinch against the cage. He's just a well rounded fighter. I think he'd get bored in boxing real quick. I really
Yeah,
do.
I kind of feel like he'll just boxing will not scratch that itch for him. He there's too many tools in your arsenal as a free forming fighter to have that, to have boxing satisfy McGregor.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I think he goes back to the UFC as well. And we'll end it with actually a quote from Nate Diaz, which I thought was great. He was getting interviewed, and basically it was a bunch of boxing people like belittling McGregor and saying that like he has no chance, and Nate Diaz actually defended him and said something like, I'm paraphrasing, like like this isn't even real fighting, you one-dimensional boxing fucks. Like if this was a street fight, McGregor would take Mayweather down in 30 seconds and wave to the crowd.
Well, let's talk about this real quick before we sign this off. Do you see Mayweather actually coming over to MMA? The
No,
answer is no. Even though
absolutely not.
he's talked a big game, he's not going to do it.
No, he would never do that. And,
And he's too
one of,
old. He's not going to be able to. It wouldn't even be fun.
but not only that, like Mayweather never puts himself in a position where he's not favored to win.
Yeah,
And
like
I
he
mean,
fights all these fighters after their prime, either when they're starting out or after their prime. Shane Mosley, Pacquiao, all of them. So
yeah. So no, he would never
yeah,
do that. I mean, you could take a C-level regional featherweight and he would wipe the floor with Mayweather, even if he was a fucking purple belt. Mayweather doesn't know what to do. Has he trained a
yeah.
day of jiu-jitsu in his life?
Anybody
No.
would just, if they're smart, they're just gonna immediately take him down. His takedown defense is gonna be shit, and it
Yeah.
would be over real quick.
No.
So
Mayweather's retiring after this fight, 50-0, cashing checks. He's done.
yeah, I think
So
50-0 is a good place to retire too.
yeah,
It
sure
sounds good.
is.
I always wondered why he stayed at 49. I was like, he's got to come out of retirement. Like, I would hate to retire at 49. Might as well just make
I
it
think
50 and just fight anybody.
there was just no demand for him to fight anyone, and that's like Conor
Right.
McGregor is like a gift to him.
Yeah.
So,
Especially the amount
all
of money
right,
he's making.
well, we'll definitely be watching. We'll be tuning in. Get us at tomorrowsfights.com, at Tomorrow's Fights on Twitter. Follow us for live coverage of the fight. Give us a like on Facebook and subscribe to the video, like below. Other than that, adios.
I don't need you to tell me how fucking good my coffee is, okay? I'm the one who buys it. I know how good it is.